Hey everybody, how are you doing? This is Kirsten here, and I really thank you for being here today, listening to this new podcast episode where we're talking about, again, chronic pain that I call here TMS. It is also called neuroplastic pain, mind-body syndrome, and it has some other names as well. But what it basically means is that you have a chronic pain or other chronic health problem in the body, but it's not coming from any physical source in the body. Even though it feels very physical, you truly have a lot of like bad digestive problems. You truly have very intense, sharp back pain. You truly have heavy, heavy chronic fatigue. You really have burning sensation in your mouth. You do have all of these things, and you might be thinking, how come it doesn't have a physical source? It feels so physical. But the truth is that these sensations are often coming from your nervous system and your brain, and you're just overly stressed. There's too much overload that you haven't been able to manage. It's just too much for you to manage. And now you start developing these symptoms. And these symptoms, you can see them as signs of like you are overwhelmed. You are pushing yourself too hard. You need to be gentler with yourself. A lot of times these symptom sensations are a sign of that. And definitely in my case, this was the case. Major overdoer, pushing hard, making things happen. This was me all the time. And then I got 7 years of chronic back pain from it. And one thing that I want to talk to you about today is something that really helped me to understand and really simplify the whole concept of TMS pain or chronic pain, neuroplastic pain. And here's what it is. This chronic pain is simply an extension of your anxiety, right? It's another anxiety symptom. So, anxiety, of course, has many different ways how it expresses itself. So, for a lot of people, it is jitteriness, right? You're always jittery. You have these racing thoughts. You're internally feeling like off all the time. You have never any calm, any peace. You are up at night a lot. You just can't stop your mind. You're always thinking about the next thing that needs to get done. These are the signs of anxiety. You may also have random, very fast heart rate. You may have very fast breathing, like you're out of breath. You may feel like things are just twisting and turning inside of your stomach. All these things are anxiety. And I think I'm right here when I am guessing that you had some of these sensations already before the main one, the big one, showed up. And when I think back to my own journey, then it's absolutely true. I often felt like jittery, like my hands were literally shaking, like sometimes making breakfast in the morning, my hands were just shaking like crazy. I was really overworked. I did so much all the time, and my mind was racing. I had this constant mode switching, from my computer to my phone and to back to my computer and then in-person clients. And then, it's like so many different things. And my mind was so busy all the time. And I had had insomnia since I was like 21 years old. So all of these things were already kind of like hinting there, right? Okay, this is not okay. This is too much. Something is keeping you on high alert. And then boom, I got that back pain, right? So it really helped me to see that this back pain and, put in your sensation, you may not have back pain. It's just an extension of anxiety. So it means that essentially your chronic pain, your chronic symptom is anxiety. That's why you're having that pain or other symptom because you are anxious, right? I don't think there is TMS chronic back pain or chronic pain without anxiety. Like, oh, I'm the chillest person and everything is nice and smooth and enjoying my life, taking like easy, sitting on the beach, chilling, and I have chronic back pain. Probably not. The person who has this chronic pain or other symptom is probably anxious. Little anxious, moderately anxious, or most cases, very anxious. Now, the thing I like about my story, what's interesting is that I didn't even know what anxiety was. I had it full on, like looking back to it, I had so much anxiety. I didn't even know what that was. because this was never really a word that I had used. This is not really a word that I had learned when I was younger, like in my own language. It was just not a thing, I felt like. And of course I heard that people were talking about, oh, it gives me such an anxious feeling, or she's an anxious person. I did not know what that meant. I knew very well what depression was because years ago I was diagnosed with it myself too. For a little while I was on medication for it. That's already like 13 years ago. So I knew really well what depression is and how that feels, heavy, slow, sluggish, don't want to do anything, just want to go hiding. But I didn't know what anxiety was. And so when I started learning more about it and I saw all these symptoms and sensations like the jitters, racing thoughts, can't sleep, constant thinking, nonstop thinking, planning, organizing. You can get anxious from just reading or hearing this list. Like, oh, this is anxiety. I did not know this. But when I learned that this is what it is, the whole picture became a lot more clear for me. And I realized, oh, okay, so when I had all these things happening already, then it's pretty natural next step that because I didn't address this stuff, that now I developed this chronic back pain too. And that's what really caught my attention. If the jitters and heart racing didn't catch my attention before, then this back pain for sure did, because I had some really rough moments too. I think I have talked about it here, but I vividly remember one time when I was teaching my group fitness class and I was showing an ab exercise on the floor, and I couldn't get up from the floor anymore because my back was in so much pain. Then at the same time, I actually worked at another gym too. Talk about overachieving, right? But this is actually the life of many personal trainers. You just hustle, right? And in this other gym, I remember after we had finished the training for the day and the class was still there, I had to lie down, I couldn't move. And then my boss, really cool guy, he really tried to help me. So he really tried to like stretch me and get me moving. And of course, like a lot of people were around us. That was just like a weird feeling, right? So with that going on, then sometimes I would get just like fear of like sitting on a certain couch, especially at one of my friends' house. I would always say like, oh my God, I can't sit on the couch. It's going to give me back pain. I had problem with walking downhill. Every time I felt like it's bending my back somehow and I'm coming back with worse pain. When I had to like put the weights away at the gym after my clients had finished their workout, I would always feel pain. I was like, oh, I can't do that. But what kind of personal trainer are you if you can't move weights, right? So I had a lot of really bad moments, and my back was in a really bad place. And I just never knew that there is a connection between that and my anxiety. Now, also, I wanted to share some other things that might contribute or that might show that you have anxiety in you. Well, one of the things is that if you are overwhelmed by a lot of like little things, like simple things that usually don't take a ton of your energy, but now all of a sudden they do. Like maybe it's like doing laundry or responding to uh, one person, or, you know, I don't know, making a simple dinner or sending out an email or whatever, like a small thing. And you just feel like you're so super overwhelmed by this one thing. I just cannot do it. So that's one sign that you are definitely experiencing anxiety and you are pushed to the max so that even a relatively small thing will absolutely completely exhaust you, right? This is one sign of anxiety. Then if you are working super late hours, super long hours, that's also me, right? It was me, still sometimes falling into this habit, but not nearly as much anymore. But there's always this pressure, like do more. And that's how it is. Like if you're self-employed, especially, it's always this like worry, am I going to make it? Got to pay the bills. Can I take on another uh, training client? Okay, I have this number of clients. Now I'm going to start this online work too. So I got to create this course and that course. And then, all of a sudden you don't take any days off in your week anymore. And then you just push and push, you work late, you don't take any breaks during the day. So this workaholism is definitely one thing that leads to anxiety. Actually, is already a sign of anxiety. So if you do that, another thing that's very common for those who experience a lot of anxiety is feeling unworthy and like whatever you do is never enough. So pushing more and more and more. It's just so common in our society. Just going super hard, never catching a break. And that comes from a place of low self-worth. So you really have no self-worth, or it's just low. So you feel like you constantly have to prove yourself to other people. And that, of course, happens by doing more and more and more. And you're always worried about something, right? It's this worrying mind. What if this is going to happen? What if that is going to happen? What am I going to do when this worst case scenario comes true? So a lot of these thoughts are probably going through your mind, so clear signs of anxiety. So if you have chronic pain or chronic other symptoms or sensations, then I am pretty sure that some of these things really spoke to you, and that should really show you that your chronic pain or other symptom, it's just another form of anxiety. It's another anxiety symptom, let's put it this way, right? It's an extension. It's just like a bigger, what would be a good word here? I can't find the right word right now, but it is like a maybe manifestation. It's like a bigger manifestation of your anxiety because you already had all these little things going on, getting overwhelmed easily, overworking, mind racing, heart beating super fast, breathing shallow. You had all these things going on, and now if you get hit with this intense pain or other symptom, it's just like anxiety taken to the next level, basically. And for me, for some reason, when I realized that, I didn't have to like separate them anymore. I didn't have to like, oh, there's anxiety and there's this pain and there's like, it's all the same freaking thing. It's all the same thing. And so now we can start thinking about what are we going to do about it then, right? What are we going to do about this chronic pain and this chronic sensation? Well, we're going to do the things that help us to reduce anxiety because your chronic pain is another form of anxiety, right? So how can we then reduce our anxiety? Okay, so let's go back to some of these things that I talked about here. Well, for example, if you are overworking all the time, there's just so much pressure on yourself, and that makes you anxious, then we have to reduce that overworking. Then we have to either reduce our hours or reduce the number of things that we're doing. Or if that's not always possible, then we have to get better at organizing our time. So we mess around less on social media and do less of the insignificant things that actually doesn't help us to get the work done that needs to get done. So just getting more focused, that can be helpful. But of course, like reducing the things that we do too. Now, the other thing, constantly worrying about something, like your mind racing. So this is again anxiety, right? And this, because it's anxiety, it's also a chronic pain. So if your mind is constantly racing, what can you do about that? Well, I have found taking regular breaks during the day very, very helpful, and then taking a day off, spending time in nature. Like I said a couple of episodes ago, we talked about the Grand Canyon hike. I can tell like my mind wasn't dealing with a lot of stuff at all. It was more just like being, not worrying, not thinking all the time because I was out in nature. So if you can do that, definitely get some nature time. But also like breaks during the day. I still do it regularly. Like at least twice a day, I take 10 to 20-minute break during the day and I listen to either um, like a meditation, or I do silent meditation, or I do breathing exercises. I like to use Insight Timer, but also I'm using Jim Prosak's audios that he sends out daily. So I do this and just giving my mind a break, and I can like this is one thing that I can tell you with like 100% certainty. Like when I started taking these breaks twice, sometimes three times a day, like listening to the meditation, going into that meditation, and clearing my mind that way, I started to sleep better. Because like how you sleep, it depends on what you do during the day. So if your day is filled with like thoughts and thoughts and thoughts and thoughts, then now if you're giving yourself a break from it, you are going to be more relaxed at night too. Okay, what else can we do? So if you have really low self-worth, then we have to work on raising your self-worth so you don't feel like you have to prove yourself to everybody all the time. You can stop people pleasing. You are allowed to set boundaries. Like these are all the little pieces that have to come together. And this is not something that happens overnight, like, oh, I raised my self-worth, I don't do this stuff anymore. No, this is work. It's very gradual work, and I have a lot of helpful stuff in my emotionally fit course if you need to work on these personality traits, people pleasing, conflict avoidance, fear of causing any trouble to anybody. Like this stuff causes you so much anxiety. But now if you become more confident in yourself, if you become more independent and at peace with yourself and truly like you're like I like who I am. If you get to that place, you're going to have a lot less anxiety. And because you have a lot less anxiety, you also have a lot less pain. What else do we have here? How can we reduce our anxiety? Well, breathing, like I mentioned, breathing is a big one. Like taking breaks again during the day. I like the way of breathing where your exhale is longer than your inhale, very calming, very soothing. And basically anything that soothes your system will help you to reduce your anxiety and therefore your chronic pain. So what is it for you? Maybe it is talking to a really good friend. Maybe it's snuggling with your pet. Maybe it is watching something on TV that makes you feel good. Maybe it's really good music. Maybe it's cooking food without like distraction, without being like attached to your phone while you're doing any of these things. Like single tasking, huge, huge thing. So important. Like if you're multitasking, your mind is so much more anxious. Phone checking, how often does that happen? Is it every minute? Is it between every task? Is it all the time while you're doing something else? So these habits that we can then start doing that will help us to reduce anxiety will also help us to reduce pain. And like I said, for me, it's like it was so clear when I put these things together. Like the back pain is not different from this other anxiety stuff. It's just like a next level thing, unfortunately, right? So if back pain is essentially anxiety, then by reducing anxiety, back pain should go down too. And that's what happens. So finding these ways how you can reduce your anxiety, like stop even thinking about like, oh, I'm gonna get rid of my back pain. What can I do? How can I work on it? It's not really work. It's more like letting. It's like letting yourself be more, resting more, relaxing more, like giving less shit about things, just like calming your system down. This is how you start experiencing less anxiety and also less pain. So I hope that this episode today helped you. Let me know if it spoke to you. I really want to hear from you. It's really nice to get feedback on this podcast so I know that you're listening and that it's giving you some thoughts. So I really would love to hear from you if this spoke to you or if it helped you. So thank you again for being here with me today, and I see you again in the next episode. Take care.